Hello everyone, welcome to another video here on Keep Running with BK. And all of us could probably just head out the door and run and we would improve in some way as a runner. But in today's video I want to talk about how I personally developed the various physiological systems and the entire runner with different types of runs. And if that sounds interesting to you, stick around and we'll be right back right after this. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Keep Running with BK. And if you've been following along, I recently started an 80-20 training block for this fall, and I'm about halfway through. My goal is I'm targeting a half marathon at the end of October, and we are at the end of September. So the 8-week training block that I planned is basically halfway done. Half of it is in the can. And one of the things that I'm doing during this training block is I'm spending about 2 weeks on each of 3 different types of speed work just to develop various aspects of my running. And then as part of my long runs on the weekends, I'm incorporating some harder miles or faster miles just to build that endurance speed in preparation for running a 7:30 pace target anyways for that half marathon. To kind of give you a sense of the big picture of my training, generally speaking, I train roughly 8 months of the year, basically winter and summer, at 100% easy running. I follow the Maffetone or MAF training approach, where I wear a heart rate monitor, and I'm striving to keep my effort below a maximum target heart rate. So I'm trying to control the effort, keeping it easy. And then 20% of the year, basically spring and fall. In the spring, I think I did a 12-week training block. This fall, I've got scheduled just an 8-week training block where I'm doing more speed work to develop other aspects of my running. And usually with the goal of a target race or a target time trial, given the pandemic, where I'm shooting for pushing myself to see how fast I can run at a certain distance. In my last video, I gave some updates on how the repeats were going. These are really fast efforts, mainly 200s and 400s, where I'm running really hard. And what I shared is in that first week, again, I was running these in the dark. I was not able to see a watch or anything like that, so I was really going by feel, and I was really curious how it was going to turn out. And basically what I learned is that first week of repeats, they were generally speaking slower than the target. And so I made some minor adjustments and went out there and repeated the same workout in the second week and nailed the workout, pretty much hitting the target that I wanted to, or at least close enough for my liking, and felt really good about that. And then this week I transitioned into running intervals, and I completed that workout yesterday, where I'm running 1 kilometer intervals with short recoveries in between, and I'm happy to report that those went very well, and I'll share maybe some more details on that in a little bit. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the focus of this video is really to talk about different types of running that I use to develop various physiological systems or aspects of the complete runner. Now, I'm not going to, as full disclosure, going to talk about the value of strength training or flexibility, or balance, or rest. These are all other aspects of being a complete runner that are worthy topics to talk about and to incorporate into our training plans. But for the scope of this particular video, I'm really just talking about the different types of running that I do and what I'm hoping to benefit from that type of running. And so to start, I'm going to talk about easy running. I've really fully embraced over the past year and a half this idea of getting in touch with what truly is easy, and truly using a heart rate monitor to help me to control the effort to make sure I'm not going faster than I should. As I've shared in these videos, and is common amongst many runners, we far too often run too hard too often. Therefore, we're not getting sufficient recovery, and in many ways we're training kind of too hard and we're not really getting the maximum benefit from our training as a result. So I use the MAF or Maffetone training method as the primary principles and framework for how I approach my easy running. There are certainly other ways of doing this out there that other runners can follow. But with easy running, I'm basically allowing my body to make small adaptations on a cellular level, on a soft tissue level. Developing a stronger heart, a larger heart that is able to pump more blood with fewer beats. That's where your heart rate continues to improve and drop, is because your heart's getting bigger and stronger, and it's able to pump through your body the amount of blood and oxygen and nutrients that it needs more efficiently. So fewer beats to get the same job done. You're also allowing your body through these easy runs to develop more efficient ways of storing glycogen stores when we get into those higher efforts, higher intensities, and learning to burn fat calories more efficiently as our primary energy source. One of the things that I do to measure my training and improvement when it comes to easy running is I perform a monthly MAF test, where each month I run for an hour at the track, and my goal is to run at or under my targeted Maffetone training heart rate of 136 beats per minute. And the idea is, as my fitness improves, as my aerobic capacity improves, I should be able to run further, therefore faster, at the same heart rate for the same duration under relatively the same conditions. And just to give you an idea, I've actually over the past 12 months improved the distance. I've been able to run 1/2 mile further than I did this time last year. And I'll put up here on the screen my most recent results. And I ran 6.64 miles in an hour this morning, which this time last year I ran 6.14 miles. So you can see there, that's where the 1/2 mile improvement. And if you look at, since I started the Maffetone training principle and started performing these tests, I've essentially over the past 14 months dropped my pace by a whole minute. So instead of running, I think 10:04 pace, I actually ran this morning's test at 9:02 pace, or somewhere in that area. The second type of running that I do, and this is where when I started this 80-20 training block, I did 2 weeks of repeats where I'm doing primarily 200s and 400s at a very fast pace with full recoveries. What I'm really doing here is trying to improve my running economy. When you run really hard, any kind of inefficiencies you have, unnecessary arm movements, leg movements, body movements, are things that really shake out. And as you get stronger and you're pushing yourself to those levels, you find ways to really use good running form, good technique. You're trying to program that muscle memory, but you're also getting stronger at that, and you're really improving how efficiently you run, and minimizing and reducing the amount of wasteful efforts. It's also a great way to kind of jumpstart your speed work, get your body to start making these changes in shorter efforts, shorter durations with full recoveries before you get into longer efforts that I'll talk about here in a little bit, where you're running at higher intensities and allow your body to prepare for those efforts. So the next type of speed work that I do, that I basically started this week and I will repeat again next week, is what I refer to as intervals. And in intervals, I'm working on improving the body's ability to deliver and utilize the oxygen, or the available oxygen, that I can distribute to the working muscles. So when we are running, our body is recruiting various muscles that are used for running. It's delivering through our blood oxygen and other nutrients that is needed for those muscles to produce energy, to produce output, and therefore be able to run faster. One of the most common things that you hear in running circles when it comes to improving your fitness as a runner is your VO2 max. V I think stands for velocity, so the delivery of maximum amount of oxygen to your body efficiently is the idea behind the concept. It's got a lot of details, a lot of depth that I'm not going to go into right now, but intervals is what I use, where I'm trying to run right at my VO2 max level, and I'm trying to improve that efficiency. I'm trying to improve that delivery system. I'm trying to improve the utilization of oxygen, making sure it's getting to those muscle fibers and recruiting more muscle fibers, and ultimately improving my fitness and improving my speed. Typically, I run my intervals at around 3 to 5 kilometer pace if I was to race that, and I typically do intervals anywhere from 1 kilometer to 1 mile in distance. I typically focus on kilometers. I've got a kilometer loop that I showed a picture of that I'll put up on the screen, and the goal here is to really run these at a steady effort at that and a consistent effort at that 3 to 5K pace to really maximize the benefit that I'm trying to get. You don't want these intervals to go longer than, say, 5 minutes. They're not intended to be long efforts. They're intended to be relatively short, but a little bit longer than repeats. But then you want to give yourself a chance to recover, and by adding more and more of these to, you're hopefully being able to add the capacity and the volume of this type of training that you can add to your week. And I think I suggested in an earlier video that you don't want to do any more than 8% of this type of training in a given week as a portion of your weekly training volume. The fourth and final type of running that I'm going to share in today's video is what I refer to as tempo. Some people refer to it as threshold running. And the idea here is that we're trying to raise our lactate threshold. Your lactate threshold is that line right where below is low intensity or aerobic exercise or activity, and right above it is anaerobic. And that you're trying to toe that line as close as possible. Now, your lactate threshold is, once you cross that, that's where your body is producing lactic acid faster than its ability to remove it. The body is not only delivering oxygen, it's also carrying away waste products or byproducts of our exercise, such as lactic acid, and disposes of it. But when we start producing it faster than we can remove it, the body then can no longer sustain that same level of intensity. So the idea behind tempo and threshold runs is to run roughly at a 10K pace. So these are a little bit slower than intervals, and they're usually longer. I typically run, say, a mile. I do mile intervals mixed in with another run at this effort. The goal is to raise that threshold. So as I can improve that threshold level and it increases, then I can run at a higher intensity for a longer time. And as you can imagine, this is the whole goal in a lot of ways, or this is one of the main goals as an endurance athlete or as distance runners that we are trying to achieve. And so doing tempo runs and majoring in tempo runs is actually what a lot of marathon runners do, or a lot of ultra marathon runners do as their quality efforts or their speed efforts during the week. Now, in reality, as I wrap things up here, all these types of running are important. In fact, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, just heading out the door and running will help you to improve as a runner. Now, it may be a little misguided or careless, or maybe not as focused and targeted, and maybe the most effective way to go about developing the entire runner. But you will gain improvement. And just because you're doing repeats, or just because you're doing intervals, and doesn't mean you're not going to improve these other aspects of your running as well. I have just found and believe that in general that these different types of running that you can incorporate into your training plan, tend to emphasize one system or one goal or benefit that you're trying to develop better than other types of running. And so adding a variety and adding certain amounts of these different types of running just really helps to make sure that you're stimulating and developing the overall runner in a more focused and in a more intentional way. As I always say in this channel, one of the goals is to train smarter. And I believe this is how I personally approach training smarter, by incorporating these types of runs into my training, especially when I'm doing more like an 80-20 approach, where 80% is easy, 20% is a combination of these different types of runs. So as I wrap up here, I just want to pose the question to you, as you're listening to this: what type of running do you incorporate into your training plans? Do you have a favorite type? Is there one that you really enjoy doing more than others, or is there kind of like the sweet spot for you? For me personally, I've kind of shifted to where I am really focused on the majority of my running, even in the 80-20 block, majority of it being at an easy effort. And I think that is really smart to do. But if I have a favorite and where my sweet spot is, it's probably those tempo threshold runs. That's when I really feel like I'm in my sweet spot. That's where I feel like I'm working in my strength, and that's where I really feel I'm in that sweet spot of running for me. And then I'd also like for you to share in the comments below too, what type of running did I maybe share that maybe you aren't doing or you don't do as often, or is there a different type that you do that you'd like to share with all of us? I always enjoy reading the comments and learning from those of you who are watching here on the channel. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Always looking to grow the Keep Running with BK community. And if you found any value or insight in today's video, I'd appreciate you clicking on the like button. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter. You can also follow my training on Strava, and I'll provide links to those down in the show notes. But until next time, again, thanks for checking out the channel. Stay safe, train smart, and keep running.